Welcome back for another episode of Control Your Brain, the podcast. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh, and today we're going to talk about anxiety, the fire in your brain. I want you to understand that if you struggle with anxiety, or if you live a busy life and you might not even feel stressed, but you're struggling with focus and attention, you're struggling with overdrive feelings, you're struggling with any behavior that you're going back to douse that fire in your brain in an unhealthy way, like internet addictions. And if you struggle with chronic illness, likely there's a fire in your brain. So I'm going to shed light on that today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is anxiety. What is it and why can it fly under the radar in your life sometimes? Number two, we're going to look at what does anxiety look like in a QEEG brain map? It literally looks like a fire in your brain. And when you understand that, what it does is it gives you the control back. You can take back your power and start using your brain in a different way so that you get a different outcome. This is essential, and people lose sight of this. People think I struggle with anxiety or I have a chronic illness that has no cause, quote unquote, I will visit that. Or, I can't do anything about my situation. It's not true. There's lots of things you can do. They're just difficult to do. And they require perseverance in the face of, difficulties and challenges. And, you need to have courage in the face of fear for this one to move forward. So we're going to talk about that in number 3 today, which is how to douse that fire in your brain in a healthy way and avoid dousing the fire in your brain in an unhealthy way. And that's the key to reducing and eliminating anxiety. So buckle up because we've got a really good episode today. So let's dive in and let's talk about number 1, anxiety and why it can fly below our radar and we don't kind of pick up the breadcrumbs back towards anxiety or running hot or sympathetic dominance being at the core of our internet addiction or chronic illness issues, or both, unfortunately. So anxiety is that feeling of having too much to do, being behind the 8 ball. It can just be dread about the day. It can be that feeling of complete overwhelm. It can be the life feeling sucked out of you, especially if it's coupled with depression. And I can talk about what anxiety and depression look like in the brain and kind of match up that relationship in just a minute because they are related, as are anxiety and ADHD or attention difficulties. So I better make the connection there in just a minute. But it's that feeling of brain fog. It's the feeling of lack of motivation. It can be the feeling that you just have to keep doing. That's survival mode. Survival mode is the complete opposite of thrive mode. Survival mode, you got your gas pedal to the metal and you just keep on doing because if you stop, you might not be able to survive anymore. That, in a nutshell, is anxiety. Now, anxiety is in the brain. And I guess we're segueing to number 2. We're going to keep going back and forth between those things today, 1 and 2. But anxiety in the brain is overuse of high beta, the extra fast brain speed. High beta is like gassing in the brain. It's a brain that has its motor running and it's go, go, going. Brains are not designed to do that. Brains are designed to be able to shift in and out of 5 different speeds that I chunk into 3 categories, but we're supposed to be able to move through these 3 categories across our day and across our life. So the idea is when you wake up in the morning, you shift out of braking. You have your brakes on all night long to give your brain a break and to get rest. So then you shift out of braking sort of into neutral first. So you might shift into neutral as you're having coffee. And then when you're done having coffee, you shift into go. You hit the gas and you get going for the day. Now, if you hit the gas at 45 miles per hour, you are going throughout your day and your life at the perfect amount of arousal. Now, arousal doesn't mean arousal in a hyper arousal way. It means you're feeling awake and alert you're calm, you're focused, you're engaged, you're charged up for the day. That's what arousal is. Arousal, healthy arousal means you feel great and you're ready to take on the challenge of the day, but you don't feel like you have to just go, go, go. It's not a grind set. Grind set is hyper arousal of high beta. And it's also not like you're dragging and you can't get your booty out of bed and you're overwhelmed and you are in hypo arousal. So those are the other two distinctions. And we're going to get there in a second. But what healthy arousal is that you're ready. Your brain feels clear. You can't wait to do your work. You're in a good mood. You say hello to your peeps and you're like, hey peeps, everybody have an amazing day and I'll see you later on to chill. So now you're gassing at 45 miles per hour. If you struggle from anxiety at some point throughout your day, and likely most of it, you are gassing at 75 miles per hour. And I know what it feels like because I did it for a very long time. Thankfully, my brain's back at 45 miles per hour, and it has been for quite a while. But there are times when it shifts and it wants to shift into 75 miles per hour, and I have to harness the energy within, because 45 miles per hour healthy arousal is what helps you feel good and perform your best and have an amazing life. So if you are grinding at 75 miles per hour, you are going to burn out your brain. Brains are not designed to go 75 miles per hour each day. So what happens in most cases is the brain is the most intelligent thing in the universe. So if you're constantly going 75, it's going to do one of two things. Number one, it's going to put the brakes on. We already said brakes are hypoarousal. They're designed for sleep. But if you're going too fast all day long, your brain will burn out and it'll start to put the brakes on to temper all that fast, high speed of hyperarousal. So when your brakes are on in the day, essentially that's the biomarker for ADHD and attention difficulties. It's an increase in the slow processing speed to offset all that fast, hot, high fire in the brain processing speed. So if you have anxiety and now you feel like you can't attend and focus, and many people I work with tell me that they have been diagnosed with adult ADHD, which is not actually a thing. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. You would have had it your whole life. Some people aren't diagnosed when they're young, but many people now are being diagnosed with adult ADHD, which is in fact happening because of the behaviors and the way you're using your mind and body all day long in that grind set, hyperarousal, go, go, go mode of high beta of the fire in the brain. It will give you attention difficulties because you've put your brain in the position where it puts the brakes on all day long or on and off throughout the day. It'll make you feel wired and tired. Now we know electronics will make your brain feel good for a beat, for a moment, but then when you're out of electronics, electronics wire and tire your brain even more, and you will end up feeling gassing and braking simultaneously at the same time. Now, if you do that for too long, you put your brain in a position where now you're gassing and braking, and the only way to get a little relief is to shift into neutral. Now, neutral is like that healthy arousal mode to an extent, except for you get stuck there and it's much higher than it's supposed to be. So what that means is now you're stuck in neutral. What happens if your car is stuck in neutral? It can't go. So it has no arousal. It's not that it has calm focus arousal. It's in neutral mode in an unhealthy way, being stuck there, and your get up and go, got up and went. You cannot push yourself into the direction that you need to go. What this will feel like to many people is a bipolar disorder. It'll feel like some manic episodes of all that gassing. Then the braking comes in. So it feels like go, 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 go. Here comes a little braking. And then 2 days later, you can't do anything because you're burnt out and your brain has shifted into neutral. Now what happens is once you've stayed in neutral a day or two and you've recovered, you're ready to go again. But unfortunately, your go is 75 miles per hour, and the cycle begins again. And this cycle can happen over a couple days. It can happen within a day. It can happen over weeks. But this is the cycle of anxiety, difficulty attending, and depression, or feeling general malaise and not feeling well and not being able to perform. And it starts with the fire in the brain of the 75 mile per hour survival mode. So on a QEEG brain map, what this looks like is high beta will be red, yellow, and orange, usually throughout the frontal lobe and in the temporal lobes and the central areas, sometimes across the entire brain. But it tends to be frontal and temporal because frontal is where working memory, attention, impulse control, focus, executive function. Temporal lobes are correlated with the reward center. They're also important areas for emotional regulation. Across the central region is the sensory motor cortex, so the sensations that you perceive and your ability to have motor output. This can all be impacted. And we know that this fire in the brain is high beta, very high magnitude, red, dark red, yellow, and orange, literally looking like those fires in a flame, the flames in a fire if you were looking at a fire. So I call it a fire in the brain. So now let's segue to what do people do on a daily basis to put this fire out? Most times people engage in some healthy behaviors, and I'm going to share those with you in your brain hack strategy for the day. But oftentimes people resort to unhealthy behaviors like a cocktail at the end of the night or 4. And what that is every time you pour yourself a drink at the end of the night, you are dousing the fire in your brain in an unhealthy way. And unfortunately, when you douse the fire in your brain with something that's external that you're kind of putting on that fire, you are not giving your brain the opportunity to bring the fire down itself, and it will keep you stuck in a negative feedback loop. Alcohol is one of those things. Marijuana or other illicit drugs are another one of those things. Pharmaceutical drugs, prescribed drugs are a major way that people are regulating externally instead of doing it internally. So for example, people may take sleeping pills, Ambien, something like that at night to douse the fire in their brain. It does not do that. It just takes the edge off for the amount of time it's in your system, but it's not necessarily downshifting the 75 miles per hour. It is a Band-Aid. In fact, it's a Band-Aid that's just dulling the system so you don't feel that fire for the amount of time. I believe it does more damage because, again, you're not feeling the uncomfortable feelings of anxiety, and your system may have calibrated for those feelings, which means then you don't do anything about it because you're not even aware it's there anymore. So you might use pills to fall asleep, and then you might use other pharmaceuticals to up-regulate your system the next day. Or you might up-regulate with coffee the next day. And I am not saying coffee's a bad thing. Too much coffee is definitely a bad thing. But if you know me, you know I love a good cup of coffee. So, I'm acutely aware of times where I feel like I want another cup of coffee because I'm just tired and all I need is more sleep and more downtime. And so I try to build a foundation in my life that I stick to so I don't get running 75 miles per hour. But now I've got to be honest with you, I am the proud mama of 5.5 children, so that's not always completely possible. So there's 2 methods, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, is decreasing that go speed, that hyperarousal, by not allowing yourself to get into it. And then number 2 is offsetting it in a healthy way. Right now, what we're talking about is offsetting that fire in your brain in an unhealthy way. So we're on pharmaceuticals right now. We talked about alcohol, illicit drugs, legal drugs that are prescribed to you. Those are external ways that you either down-regulate hyperarousal or you up-regulate hypoarousal. Moving on to our electronics. I already told you that electronics they resonate at 60 hertz. I didn't tell you that part. They resonate at 60 hertz. So the more you're in front of them, they are in fact wiring and tiring your brain, increasing the fast speed, increasing the slow speed, and putting you at risk for this whole cycle. But they feel good in the moment. So a lot of people will go to electronics at the end of the day thinking that they're chilling in a healthy way. But instead, they're actually ramping up that brain performance pattern that they have gotten into using. And too much screen time will make that anxiety brain pattern much worse. So we're going to need to talk about that in just a minute. But be aware when you go into the screen, you're using it to down-regulate hyperarousal, to douse that fire in your brain. So in terms of electronics, there's also video games. So some people will play 3 or 4 hours of video games at the end of the day, and they're using it for mood regulation, to down-regulate hyperarousal. So I want you to think, get your journal out right now, because this is an interactive podcast. Get your journal out, and in it, write down all the ways at the end of the day, or it may be throughout the day, you are down-regulating externally in an unhealthy way to douse the fire in your brain. If you keep going back to electronics, if you keep going back to TV, if you keep going back to streaming services, if you're consuming illicit content, you are absolutely dousing the fire in your brain and making it worse at the same time. You're dousing it with gasoline. So write this down in your journal. Unhealthy ways I'm dousing the fire in my brain. List them. Also, figure out if you're using anything to upregulate hypoarousal. Those times where you're feeling tired, do you go to something external to juice yourself up a little bit? And right now we're talking about unhealthy things. Some people have a drink in that mode. If you drink a lot in the evening, then you'll feel more tired in the morning. And some people will resort to day drinking, unfortunately, and that will give them a little bit of a boost for the time that they have it. Other people will take ADHD medication. We know that this is an article. This isn't my opinion. This is a scientific article that more moms and college students than ever before are using ADHD medications to upregulate because they're exhausting lifestyles, and they're lifestyles that keep you in 75 miles per hour. And then you got your wired and tired and you need something to get through the next day. And thankfully, I've never had to go there as the mama of 5.5 beautiful children. I just resorted to a decade of exhaustion, and thankfully I've come out of that. Okay, so now let's segue to number 3 is how do you douse that fire in your brain in a healthy way? Okay, number 1 way, exercise and movement. Get your booty outside, even if it's for a 10-minute walk. I took a walk already this morning. That is movement. It's not exercise. When you take a walk, it's movement. You're moving your body, and go do it in nature. We know that nature is very calming and stimulating in a healthy way for your system. That is a good way to get out, get some movement going. Then number 2 is exercise, but you really have to kick it into a higher gear. Exercise to quote unquote exhaustion. It doesn't mean you're exhausted and you can't move. It just means you really exerted yourself. And if you've heard me talk before, I love to box. I got a new boxing bag. Honestly, I've not set up the punch trackers yet, but it's going to be amazing when I do. And I have used it, so I'll go down there and I kick and I punch. I follow a couple fitness apps, so I don't have to think about it. And when you follow a program, things are much more difficult and you get better results. So you can get a workout app that feels good to you. You can go to a gym. Get engaged. Get engaged in a healthy way, and it'll bring all of that energy down. Another thing that I do is I have stand-up paddle boards. I go onto the lake that's close to my house, and there's a picture of me and Saoirse, my youngest daughter, on the lake at sunset. So amazing. It's so good for the soul, and it downshifts the brain after a long day. That was a Saturday evening after a long week. It was amazing. I could literally feel the downshift happening. Catch a sunset. My house, I chose it on purpose because it's perfectly placed on the earth. I can see the sun rise from the back porch and the sun set from the front porch. And you will often find me on those 2 places at that time of day. just kind of resetting my circadian rhythms and getting ready for the day in the morning and bringing the energy down in the evening. So good for your brain. So get yourself a healthy morning routine and evening routine to ease into your day and ease out. It will do you wonders. If you're going to watch shows, watch them on a TV, not on computers or phones. The TV is proven to have less of that wired and tired effect on your brain. If you're going to watch a show with story structure that's between 30 and 45 minutes, or you can watch a movie. Some of them are epically long, but most of them are about an hour and a half. And they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a story arc. And if you get a good show like Suits, I'm watching Suits right now. It's not triggering in most ways. Very good show. My husband wanted to watch an episode. This is a true story. Last night, Donna got fired. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler alert, but I am like a million seasons behind. I just started watching it. That's from season 2. I think it's on like season 8 right now. So I'm not spoiling it for anybody. Donna got fired last night. My husband wanted to watch an episode this morning to find out what happened. And I'm like, dude, we are not watching TV in the morning. But what it does, and I said to him, longing is good for the brain. And he's like, yes, it is. Longing is good for the brain. So he is looking forward to the story picking up tonight. And that's really powerful in terms of healthy fantasy. And especially if you find yourself going into content on the screen that isn't good for you, that's definitely fantasy, but not good for your brain, you're swapping out unhealthy fantasy for healthy fantasy. And in that way, you're going to downshift and regulate hyperarousal in a very healthy way. Douse that fire in your brain in a healthy way. So now in your journal, figure out the fun, engaging things that you like to do and write them down. Ways that you could downshift at the end of the day. And this is going to be really personalized. In my 90-day program for explicit content recovery, we actually are compiling a list of these activities. But right now, I want you to think, what are the things that you enjoy that help you to relax? And the list is literally endless. And what is relaxing for me might not be relaxing for you. I had jazz music on, and my husband's in a wee bit of a state right now, as you can tell, since he wanted to day watch TV. I had jazz on. He's like, jazz just doesn't compute to me. And not that everybody has to love jazz, but I like jazz music. I find it very calming. So I was making some food this morning, and in the morning, I usually play jazz. I don't like music that's too high key. I will rock myself out later on in the day to a lot of good new tunes, that pop culture types of music. But in the morning, it's jazz. And he's like, jazz doesn't work for me. It's too chaotic. It's too all over the place. So like jazz works for me. It doesn't work for him. And I was in control of the music. So, it might not work for you. Paddleboarding might make you want to jump off a cliff, but it's very soothing for me. My husband loves to golf. He's been trying to get me to golf with him. I keep swearing I'm going to do it. I haven't gotten there. Golf's not that relaxing for me. And I shared this story somewhere else, but we recently went to Las Vegas, and I encouraged my husband to golf. He wanted me to golf with him. I'm like, you must be on glue right now. I'm not golfing at the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas. Anyways, I rode along, which actually cost like $100 just for me to ride along in the cart. It was 104 degrees. This is a true story. But my husband ended up getting a hole-in-one, which was really cool. And we just had the best time. And just riding along in that cart was just so chill. We were with 2 other guys, and the other guy started drinking at like 10 a.m. Thankfully, the whole trip, we barely drank at all. We were very casual. And what was so cool about it is I'm so enjoying this experience, and it's so calm and relaxing. I'm not regulating in an unhealthy way. I'm just regulating in a super healthy way. I'll have to put a picture of me and him for his hole-in-one on my Instagram. I don't have it there yet. So think about this. What works for you to downshift at the end of the night? And think about this. It might not be the same thing as your people, as your person. So you don't always have to do this by yourself. And my husband and I, as I'm talking about here, and my children and I, all my people, my friends and I, we have things that we do together, but we have things we do separate. So we just went to our mountain house with our besties that we hang out with 2 other couples that are our best friends. We call ourselves the besties. Yes, I did make that up. I know what you're thinking. But we actually sold our mountain house. So it was our last hurrah. And when we go away to the mountain house, my friends like to shop a lot and they like to go, go, go. I need a lot more downtime. We used to joke that, I'm kind of too intellectual for that, but I just need more downtime. So there's zero hard feelings when they go off shopping and I go for a mountain walk. And then they come back and they show me all the things that they got. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool, super fun. And I get to tell them how relaxing my mountain walk and how the peak was today. So I cut that out for myself, knowing that's what I need on mountain weekends. But, they need different things and that's okay. And then we all met back at the mountain house and we all had a chill evening together. So amazing, right? So do what works for you. Share time with your people in a relaxing way, but do the things that you need to do that are really healthy for you. I take a lot of baths. Baths are very, very relaxing. I encourage everybody, if you don't take a bath, take a bath because it's amazing. It gives your brain so much oxytocin in your system, serotonin, dopamine. It's so good for you. So find out what works for you and start doing it. And write it down. What are all the things you like to do right now? What are all the things you used to like to do? Other things we do in my house is we do puzzles. We put it out. I was joking that it's fall now. So fall and winter, we usually have a puzzle out on our dining room table and we just chip away at it and everybody puts a couple pieces. Sometimes we sit together. Sometimes people come and go. A lot of times the kids will have their friends over and they'll just do the whole puzzle and I'll buy another one. But it's really fun and engaging, and it's something that we can do together. I have to put a picture of this on Instagram. I got a lot of pictures to post. I'm gonna have to get going. My son Seamus loves to do Legos, so we always have a Lego in the house, which we do need to break that out of the box. And then we just went to the Art of Brick exhibition. I asked him if he wanted to go, and he said yes, which is super cool. We had a nice time together checking out all these awesome Legos, and I will put a couple pictures of that. Figure out, do what's good for you, do what's fun for your people, balance out your life, douse that fire in your brain naturally and in a healthy way. If you want more help, this is where my work comes into play. What you may not know this, but technology exists that can shift that hyperarousal for you. So if you're really stuck in this hyperaroused mode, this is the number one brain hack that you can do. The first step of my process is something called a QEEG brain map. And go over to Dr. Trish Leigh, go to the tab that says Work with Dr. Trish, and down there it says QEEG brain map. Check it out, and you'll see examples of this hyper-aroused fire in the brain of anxiety. There's one there. So when you have a brain map performed, and everything can be done online from home, it's very quick, it's very easy, which is the cool part of it. And then you and I get on Zoom and we walk through your full brain map, and I can show you how every area of your brain is performing. You're able to see that fire in your brain with your own eyes. And then using technology that's all measurable, we can shift that fire and bring high beta down. And I've done this with hundreds of people. I also coach other neurofeedback practitioners. I've helped thousands of people to be able to bring all that fast, hot speed survival mode down so you can feel calmer, feel more relaxed, accomplish your goals, love being around your people, and reduce your symptoms of chronic illness and put internet addictions at bay. Now, this is the reason it works, is because you're doing those things in terms of compulsive behaviors you go back to. We're just using the internet as an example here because it's the number one thing people are doing these days. But you go back to consuming things on the internet, passive consumption of other people's content, to douse that fire in your brain. But check this out. No fire, no need to douse the fire in a healthy way. That's how neurofeedback coaching works when I help people. So you can break your shackles to the screen by dousing the fire in your brain using neurofeedback. It's very healthy. It doesn't put anything into your brain. It's a peak performance elite tool. Elite performers in every sport, in every competitive anything out there are using neurofeedback to keep their brain in that optimal mode, so to keep performance anxiety at bay. The other thing I wanted to tell you is about chronic illness is that if you struggle with chronic illness, most likely there is autonomic nervous system dysfunction at its core, because that's what chronic illness does to your brain. And then your brain keeps chronic illness going because you're stuck in this negative feedback loop, the downward spiral I already talked about. If you're struggling with autoimmune disorders, with any chronic illness, please schedule a brain map with me. I've been there. If you don't know my story, I'm going to be putting out a playlist when I get the time and energy, but unfortunately, I've been dealing with autoimmune. Thankfully, I'm on the tail end, knock on anything, right? I've been dealing with autoimmune disorders because of toxic mold poisoning, and it is a brutal on the system. So I've had to take all of my healthy hyperarousal dowsing strategies and foundation for my life and then ramp it up on steroids so that I could get rid of the issues that I was having because of this chronic illness. And I could feel that being stuck in ANS dysfunction. It's a wild experience, and especially when it's something external that's putting you in it. So if you struggle with chronic illness, please reach out to me. Schedule your brain map. The link's right on my website. When you schedule, you get some directions to purchase the brain training headband and a sensor, and I give you access to a professional app, and you can take the brain map at home. You can see what your brain is doing within a week or two later, and then we meet for an hour on Zoom and I break it down for you. So if you're stuck in internet addictions or chronic illness, now's the time to break the shackles, and the link is there for you. QEEG Brain Map is the first step, and it's all measurable. There's tons of science that shows that it works, and I would love to help you if it feels good. If not, stay here with me on this podcast because I'm putting out more and more episodes. And until next time, control your brain or it'll control you.